This is what you should fear. You are what you should fear.
This past year was my senior year of college, and I was thrilled to be living with an alumni of my sorority who I'm very close with. We'll call her Abby for clarity's sake. Abby and I weren't actually supposed to live in the apartment we ended up in. We were originally going to be living in a townhouse with 2 other girls, but they started so much drama a month before we were supposed to move in that we had to contact our landlord to find a different place within their company to live. Thankfully, we found a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom basement apartment in a quiet area off campus. The first month was fine and without incident. But as the days went by, some strange things began to happen in the apartment. One morning, Abby woke up to a kitchen cabinet open. She wasn't that concerned about it and figured that I had just forgotten to shut it the night before. The next morning, a different cabinet was open. And once again, she shrugged it off. However, I went home one weekend and she woke up to find every cabinet in the kitchen wide open and the sink running. Needless to say, Abby was scared and spent the night at her boyfriend's. 2 weeks later, we were watching TV and heard the bathroom door close. I tried to calm Abby down by saying that the fan we kept on in the bathroom blew it closed. However, when we went to bed, we thought we could hear someone walking around in our living room. There's no way someone broke into our apartment and hid the whole day only to come out at night and screw around with us. I was home the whole day and Abby was home from 11 in the morning on. That incident took place shortly before Christmas break, and all was calm in the apartment until February. Abby had gone home for the weekend, and I was home alone, relaxing on the couch and doing homework. It was pretty late at night, so I turned on the TV for background noise and curled up on the couch to sleep. I woke up at 2:32 in the morning to see Abby walking through the front door, smiling but not saying anything. I blinked, still groggy from sleep, and asked if she was okay. She just looked at me and proceeded to take her shoes off and walk into the kitchen. Something about her didn't seem right. Like, this girl looked like Abby and walked like her, but it wasn't her. I asked her again if she was okay, because it was so early in the morning for her to be coming home. Abby looked at me, smiled, and began washing something in the sink. Something inside me felt a profound sense of dread, like I was in actual danger and needed to get away. As quickly as possible, I went to my room and locked my door. My roommate followed me because I heard someone tapping their finger against the door. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. It wouldn't stop. I didn't say another word because it felt like if I did acknowledge her, it gave her more strength. I know that doesn't make much sense, but that was my instinct. I curled up beneath my blankets and stared at my bedroom door, almost waiting for her to kick it in. My eyes felt heavy, and the tapping was almost like a metronome, enticing me to sleep. As I drifted back to sleep, the taps seemed to slow down a trickle. The morning after, I was exhausted. It felt like I'd taken 20 Advil PM to help me sleep, but I remembered everything that happened last night. Cautiously, I left my room and saw that Abby's bed hadn't been disturbed or slept in. I went to the living room, and her shoes and purse weren't there. A cold feeling crept into my spine as I sent her a text asking if she'd come home that night. She responded that no, she hadn't, and wouldn't be coming home for another 2 days. But I checked the sink, and the bowl that Abby had been washing had been cleaned and put away. I firmly believe I was not dreaming or hallucinating, and I know this wasn't some elaborate prank by Abby because she would never do something like that. I firmly believe something took the shape of Abby that night, and that its intentions were not good. There were a few other experiences in that apartment, but nothing so dramatic as what I went through that night. Was this a doppelganger? So this has only started happening this morning. This morning around 6 a.m, I got out of bed to get ready for work. While I was in the bathroom getting ready, my boyfriend was still in bed. Suddenly, I heard him, and it sounded like he was scared of something in the bedroom. I walked back into the bedroom to see if he was okay. When I asked him, he seemed pretty shaken up. After a few seconds, I was able to get him to explain to me what happened. When he was just starting to wake up, he stated that he saw the spirit of an older lady that seemed to be cussing him out for no apparent reason. After he told her to go away, she did. But not long after this, while he was half asleep, he thought I was laying on the bedroom floor and reaching up to run my hand across his chest. As he started to wake up though, he started to realize something about it was really off. He said that she was laying too far away to realistically reach up to him and touch him at all. Like her arm would have had to have been almost 5 feet long. Along with that, he said that her features seemed kind of blurry. To top it off, he said that she had a wide-eyed and emotionless stare that's uncanny valley-like. He describes it as if someone built an animatronic version of me. Later on in the day, after I got home from work, I got up from the edge of our bed to open the bedroom door for our cat. According to my boyfriend, my doppelganger showed up again, but this time she was standing at the foot of our bed and directly staring in the direction of actual me, over by the bedroom door. From what we understand, whatever is trying to copy me is definitely trying to fool my boyfriend into a false sense of security. The bad thing though is that we're also pretty sure this is some sort of hostile presence. If anyone has any advice or information on what this may or may not be, and knows how to deal with it, please help. So I have sort of a ghost story. It's going to be pretty long because it's two different stories really, but possibly the same entity. These two incidents actually happened and I to this day have no damn clue what it was I heard and saw. Anywho, I live in Louisiana. Sort of like the breeding ground for this kind of stuff, right? The block I live on is just wrong. I could go on about it, but I won't. We've joked that it may be its own little hellmouth. Incident number 1. I am basically the hood cat lady. I leave food out and toys and even a cute little bed for my little friends. There's one that especially took a liking to me, that I'd liked to just sit outside at night and early morning and just cuddle with for a bit. It was around 2 a.m. As usual, I go to refresh bowls and I noticed how cold it was in the middle of summer in Louisiana. My door was shut, so it's not the AC. I got this odd feeling and I began hearing whispers and this voice that was an octave lower than Voldemort's.
Look up. Look at me.
Stupid me. I looked up, and in the backseat of my car, where obviously no one was at 2 a.m, was my son. My 2-year-old son, who was in the house, asleep. Only the features were off, as if he was only a badly drawn memory from someone who had only seen him once. The eyes were too narrow, the smile way too wide, and only half of his body was showing. I looked down, finished my task trying to look as calm as possible, and noped back into the house. I locked and chained the door and salted all windows and doors. Incident 2. My husband works evening shifts that bring him home usually after 2 a.m. One night in our room, with my toddler in bed with me, I had begun hearing knocking sounds and muffled voices around 10 a.m. Assuming it's the neighbors, I ignored it. As the night went on, the knocking sounds began to sound as if they were coming from closets and actual walls, even the ceiling. The voices got closer and began to sound more male. At 1 a.m, there was a bang at our back door, which is in the bedroom, leading to a fenced-in backyard with a chain and lock that only husband has a key to, 'cause, you know, it's the hood and we have small kids. The voice I heard was literally my husband.
It's me. Let me in, please, love.
In his exact tone, and using the name he calls me. Even my son jumped up, yelling Daddy's name, but something was off. He never comes to the back door. He calls me or presses the doorbell. So, what the fuck? I almost went to open the door because it sounded so much like him, but instincts kicked in and I grabbed my son and my phone and noped out of the room to my son's room up front. Then I brought my daughter into this room and we locked the door. I called my husband and you guessed it, he was still at work. It couldn't possibly have been him. When he came home, he looked around and saw no evidence of anyone being there and no camera footage. No neighbors saw or even heard anything. And that's a lot because over here, everyone is nosy and knows everyone and everything at all hours. If you've read this far, thank you. Maybe it was the house that was haunted, but for whatever reason, I saw my husband's doppelganger at least twice while we lived there. The first time was after I drove him to work. It was a 45-minute drive each way. And I was just getting back home. When I pulled up in front of the house, there he was, standing on the porch smoking a cigarette. Same black hat and red shirt he had on when I dropped him off. I looked away for a second to put the car in park, and when I looked back, he was gone. I hopped out of the car and looked on either side of the house for him. I was so confused. I called and asked him where he was. Obviously, he was still miles away at work. I thought I was going crazy. The second time, I was not alone. We had a friend of ours over at the house, who I'll refer to as W. W and I were hanging out in the kitchen, eating munchie food, and my husband was outside for whatever reason, I forgot. Before I continue, the house was set up like this. The kitchen is the first room you walk into from the front door and front porch. It's the only room on the bottom floor. There's a set of wooden stairs in the kitchen that leads upstairs to the rest of the house. In front of the house is the main road, so you have to walk off the porch, onto the sidewalk, and around to the side of the house to get to the yard. Okay, so we're both in the kitchen. I'm leaning over the counter eating leftover halupkis, and W is at the kitchen table facing the door. My husband bursts through the door and runs through the kitchen, slamming the door shut behind him. I only see him out of my periphery. After a second, W says to me, "Where did he just go?" And a chill goes up my spine. I turn around and he's not there. I don't even bother checking the stairs because they're very loud and I would have heard him. I knew what it was. I say to W, that wasn't him, and go towards the door to check outside and prove to both of us he was still out there. W grabs hold of the back of my shirt terrified and yells, "Don't open the door." I bravely open the door and yell for my husband, who responds, "Yeah?" and comes walking around the house to the side yard. Our simple friend then says to him, "Dude, someone just ran into your house," causing my husband to go into attack mode, running into the house searching for the intruder. Because W didn't act as if a stranger ran into the house when we were in the kitchen. In fact, I think he even said something to him before asking me where he went. I stop them both and say, "Wait a minute, what did you see?" And he looks at my husband and says, "I saw you." At that moment we realized what happened. We saw something supernatural. We were thoroughly freaked out, and W refuses to talk about it to this day. This is a local legend at my city, and it gave me the chills when I heard about it. This isn't my story, but these are true accounts. It all started around the 70s. At the park where this thing is located, there is a huge rock that stands overlooking the ocean. There was a story of a woman who had tanned skin and long blonde hair that would stand on top of the rock every morning. People walked past the rock would say her behavior was quite strange. People wondered who she was and why she was doing it. It went on for months and months until she disappeared. Or so people thought. In 1983, another woman appeared on the rock, mirroring the same behavior as the last one. Instead, she looked like the total opposite of the other one. She had long dark hair, pale skin and dark clothing. People said she looked misty, and without anyone disagreeing, she was an apparition. Even stranger, a woman with the same exact description was found murdered next to the rock, strangled to death in a bush. People have said that she still goes there to this day. Runners have said that they pass by her and describe her doing a yoga pose. Her mouth is wide open as though she's screaming, but no sound can be heard. She then would vanish out of thin air. People have gone up to her and asked if she's okay, which she never acknowledges them. And then when they glance away for only a second, she's gone. It's a very interesting story, and personally, I have never experienced her. But I wanted to post it here, since you guys might be interested. Hello watchers and listeners. If you enjoyed that video, please hit the like button, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing. A huge thank you to all the Reddit users who allowed me to use their stories. Links to each story will be in the description below. If you have any stories you would like to share on my channel, please send them to my email, which is also in the description below. As always, a huge thank you to everyone who continues to support me. I really do appreciate it. Stay safe.